We have 2 children in this family who are placed in different homes. There seem to be some competing interest among the family members. This appears to be a case where we could benefit by the additional services of CASA. I'm going to ask that CASA be appointed and that a volunteer assume responsibility for this case as quickly as possible.
We are on the record in the matter of 01J 503-009-002 and 30110. This matter is here on motion, and at this time it would be helpful if both Ms. Peterson with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services and Ms. Nelson with CASA could advise the court as to the status of the children.
They are doing well. They are in Shantavia's in Jefferson County Public School Program. Also, UNA is also.
Well, Shantavia has said repeatedly from the first visit that she wants to run out and get hit by a car so that she can go to heaven or that she can go back home.
Ms. Hagee, do you have any comments on behalf of the social worker about the progress that's been made and the plans that are being made for this summer?
Your Honor, we submit the report, the interim review report, and we're pleased at the way things are going, but there's still a few challenges that we need to look at, and I'm going to defer to the child advocate.
Yes, Ms. Perez.
Well, Jesse's had some struggles through school, although we've talked about his issues and he's realized that he does need help in some areas. We've had his IEP, and I'm going to go ahead and carry over next school year because we're hoping that he'll be able to return home with Mom.
We work with social workers, we work with attorneys, and we have a very short time in which to put the family back together again. Frankly, we need help. The juvenile court cannot do this job alone. The juvenile court needs to have the support of the community. And the unique thing about child advocates, about CASA, is that they are the most effective representatives of the community that our country has come up with yet.
The National CASA mission is to recruit, train, and supervise volunteer advocates for abused and neglected children. They are volunteers. They are appointed by the court. Their job is to do fact-finding, to get to know the child, to come to court with that information, share that information with the other parties, and help to make sure that this system gets every one of those kids into a safe, permanent home.
When I would swear in the CASA volunteers, I would explain to them that they had 4 primary duties to the court. The first is to investigate the child's best interest, dispositional options that are in the best interest of the child. The second is to advocate for that child and that child alone within the court system and outside of the court system within the agencies. The third is to facilitate an agreement between the stakeholders and the parties whenever possible. And the fourth is to monitor, to make sure that that child's placement is appropriate, they're safe, and that all of their needs are taken care of, and to report back to the court when anything is not as it should be in that child's life.
No, the behavior is the same with grandmother, with natural mom. When I first began to go see the children down in the other county, the older one was very, very guarded. She was very controlled in her responses. She was very fearful. And if it wasn't for CASA going down, 45 minutes to a whole nother district to find out and to interview, we never would have found out that the kids were back with Grandma again. And they were being bounced from place to place. And then once she moved to the second foster home, where she finally felt safe, she felt like Grandma could not find her. She told me that. She felt safe from Grandma now. That she began to open up, and now there's allegations of sexual abuse that had gone on.
One of the things I appreciated most about the CASA program was our social service agency was way overloaded. These caseworkers could not do the job that needed to be done that they wanted to do on hundreds of cases. And a CASA would have 1 case or 2 cases. And I literally believe the CASA saved those children.
social workers are mandated, certainly during a reunification period, to work with the entire family. So of course they're always looking out for the best interests of the children, but they also are looking at the needs of family members, especially the parents. I think what's wonderful about child advocates is that they are there just for the child, and I think that child advocates are in the home or with the child or their children more frequently than the social workers can ever manage. So they have a lot of additional information that I think is very helpful when provided to the social workers. And so it's very helpful to get that additional perspective.
If he hadn't had an advocate, I think Jesse may have not received all the services that he has had now. As far as school goes, I don't think he would have ever been tested for most of the things he's been tested for. I don't think he would have been in math tutoring, and so I felt that was my role to do that, and I have.
Yes, for me as an administrator in child welfare, it is so crucial to have that objective set of eyes. We have staff that become very involved in working with families, working with children, but I recognize that our staff, when they're doing their very best jobs, are actually going to be representing the agency and the agency's perspective. And so one of the questions that I've come to ask over the years on any child in foster care, where we have a question come up about the quality of care, if we have a question about the contested adoption, I always say, what would the CASA recommend? And if they say they don't have a CASA, I say, well, then let's go to court and get a CASA, because there's too much that hangs in the balance of the decisions we make every day not to have that objective set of eyes looking at the case, knowing the child, knowing the family, and someone who really isn't beholden to anyone except the child and family.
Are you on the RAP team, Mr. Snyder?
Yes, I am.
And do you have the same feeling that the RAP team is being utilized by Brian and his mom?
Yes, in fact, I'm really pleased to see that his mother is really taking it seriously as well. Again, to reiterate what the DA has said, Brian and his mother, and for that matter, the new stepfather as well,
Right.
are really working as a team here. They recognize that they have problems need to be solved, and they're really doing a good job of it. In the 2.5 years that I've known Brian, he has gone through 5 different living environments. He has had 3 social workers. He's at his 4th school. Well, his parents were out of the picture for some time. They're now back in his world, so there were a lot of changes involved there as well. There's been a lot changing, and one of the things that's been very encouraging for me is that I've been able to be that stable influence for him, to the point that now when something goes on at school, if there's a situation at his group home, if he has any kinds of problems, one of the first lines out of his mouth now is, wait, I need to call my advocate. And he's known that wherever I am, if my cell phone is near me, I'm going to pick it up, and I'm always making an effort to be there for him, even as the rest of the people in his life have changed. Jeff Snyder, advocate.
Okay. Liz Stewart, family facilitator.
Ronnie Smith, social worker.
Brian, kid.
Good.
Stephen, Brian's stepfather.
Okay.
Cynthia, Brian's mother.
Okay.
I'm Eleanor. My son has not had a stable relationship as in an adult for 4 years, and the 2 years that Jeff has been in his life, he's had that stable male figure, and I thank Jeff for that because Brian needs that, and Jeff has been probably the only male stable figure in Brian's life in the last 2 years.
Tried out for baseball.
So I think advocates are very helpful to me as a social worker. Like I said, he's an extension of what I can provide, and he gives me a thorough report because he has a great relationship with the family, and he's been there longer than I have, so he was kind of able to fill me in when I came onto the case. So no, I don't think he's stepping on my toes at all.
I was living in a really bad group home. I'm not going to name names, but I was in a really bad environment, and it just wasn't working out at all. And I was living there when I met him, and we talked about it, and he agreed. He was like, this isn't a place for you, and I'm going to try to do everything I can. And he just tried and tried and tried, and then he finally said, my advocate, and my social worker and the person out in the group home had like a little talk, and that day they said, "Come on, we're moving." And I moved. So he helped a lot about that. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have moved so quick.
I'm just grateful he gave me another chance at being his mom.
You know, we need to hear from the people who know these kids the best. And often the person in the courtroom who knows these kids the best is going to be the CASA.
And the unique thing about a CASA worker is that they are assigned to one child, one case, and they have more time to look in depth about things that are going on with the children, school, extracurricular involvement, to do a lot of things that the social worker can't do because they have so many other cases.
What about you, Ms. Hudson, on Jesse's behalf?
Well, first I'd like to commend the mother and the mother and Jesse for working so hard to make the important changes in their life that needed to be made. Mm-hmm. And he also told me that he's got a really good relationship with his advocate. He enjoys talking to her. He feels he can confide in her. And I think she's been a real support to him throughout this time. So often social workers, child's attorney, other people in the system that may need information often go to the child advocate to find out what's going on, because they probably see the child every week or more, whereas a social worker may only see the child once a month. The attorney sees them even less often than that.
My organization, Children's Law Center, represents over 20,000 of the children in foster care in Los Angeles. So as you get a sense from those numbers, we have incredibly dedicated lawyers and staff, but they have huge caseloads. They often represent as many as 150 or 200 children in the system apiece. So the CASA can often be additional eyes and ears for our lawyers in regard to what's going on in the child's life. There have been instances where clients of ours are in psychiatric institutions or in group homes or other settings where it's incredibly helpful for there to be someone who frequently is there every week, sometimes even more than that, sort of getting a sense of what's going on in the child's life, and often the CASA can be a helpful source of information for our staff.
Your role is to be the child's CASA, and it's not your role to push for what's best for the parent or what the parent wants. Not that these things aren't important, but they have an attorney to do that, okay? And they have a social worker who should be very much involved in doing that if they're doing the right, the right thing. So
the CASA volunteers receive a great deal of very thorough, very well-planned training before they come to court. They have to go through a series of classes that are taught by judges, by prosecutors, by social workers. They learn about the court system, they learn about the social service delivery agency, they learn about the law. There is a national standard for training that the CASA program follows. In addition, there is ongoing training and supervision. The CASA program has supervisors who work with each volunteer on the case. If the volunteer is not certain of what to do, they can go to a supervisor, ask for assistance. The supervisor may even attend court with them.
We require 30 hours of training before an advocate can be sworn in to represent a child in the dependency system. In addition to that, we require 12 to 15 hours of continuing education each year. So it's not just a one-shot deal. Our supervisors, they also come from all walks of life. We have former social workers, and we have current social workers. We have attorneys. We have psychologists. We have linguists. We have folks who all come with professional degrees as well. And these are the folks who are also providing the support services and the access to resources to our volunteer advocates.
Not only my supervisor, but I've asked multiple staff as far as advice on what I should do. There's been times where I felt that I didn't know what the next step was, and it just took a really quick question, and all staff has been great.
In your training, they can't teach you everything you need to know, but they can teach you where to find more information as the need arises. And Brian ended up benefiting because I spent that time. And I felt good because I saw the change in him right away.
Our volunteers are required to go through a very thorough screening process, and that includes an application, it includes references, it includes training, and it also includes a very thorough background check. Every one of our programs, our standards insist that they be sure to conduct a background check on all the volunteers before they can be assigned to a child. And that's very important to us because we are a child advocacy organization. We want to make sure that the people who come in to do this volunteer work are truly committed to the child's best interests.
The first time I met Stephanie, I don't remember the date, but I remember that she took me to Chili's and then we started talking.
Yeah, we talk like all the time. It kind of gets annoying sometimes, but it's what you have to do. But
child advocates provide those pats on the back. They provide that encouragement. They provide that reason to live, if you will. So what we try to do in court, and the child advocates help more than anyone else, is identify the passions that this child may have and give the child an opportunity to realize the goals of those passions.
And we had a case where I did a permanent guardianship, and that case had a CASA on the case. And the CASA stayed with the case for the 1-year period until the first review. The agency is responsible for providing the court a report at the 1-year review. I get the report from the agency and it's 2 pages. We can't find the guardian, we can't find the child, we don't know anything about the placement. And then underneath it is the CASA report. 14 pages, highly detailed of everything that's happened to this child and this family in the previous year.
3 children were divided among family members, and CASA was assigned to the case. And this particular worker was just very diligent in her work. And what we determined, or what she determined and brought to the court, as we were about to award basically permanent custody of these family members, is these children were being abused and neglected by these family members. She was able to provide all that information to the court, provide all the supporting documentation. The children were then removed from those individuals. They were placed together with a family up in Puerto Rico, and they've been adopted.
And I tell the CASAs when I train them, your report is the one I will read first, because I know that you have had the qualitative and quantitative contacts with the case that far exceed anyone else who's paid to monitor this case.
The quality of our CASA reports is far and above, I think, anything you could imagine. It is not unusual on any given day for me to get a CASA report that exceeds 20 pages, where the CASA volunteer has interviewed 20, 30 people. So you get your list of people that they've interviewed, and quite frankly, it acts as a tool in many instances for the cases to settle.
The lawyers look at what CASA is saying, and as a result of those reports, they go back to their client, mom or dad, and just say, look, we need to settle this. We need to come to some agreement. Because the evidence is too overwhelming.
I'd like the CASA volunteer, Ms. Cockrell, to let me know and tell me what's going on with this family.
Okay. I'm really very proud of Christina. She's done a very good job. I've been on the case since August, and then we had court in December. And I've been monitoring. I go every week, every 2 weeks occasionally. And she's just doing a great job. The kids are well taken care of. The kids are in school. They're smart. They're good kids.
In the majority of cases, reunification is still the primary goal for the child. In practice, that's still the case, at least in my county and in my state. If we look at the reunification plans, the majority of them are still reunification plans. That means that solving mom and dad's issues is what it's all about, to get the child back home safely. And a good CASA recognizes that and can communicate to the parents they're supportive of that and can help them get resources. And that there are numerous times when the CASA has identified a resource that the agency has not yet been able to identify.
I mean, she has helped me so much. It's hard to really explain. But without her today, I don't feel that our family would be together because we would not have been properly represented in court. That's the way I feel.
The social worker was wanting to remove the children. And the GAL, you know, kind of wondered if they couldn't make it work, and the GAL requested a CASA, and that's when we went in. And basically, we just helped them stabilize. We helped them get better housing, treatment plans, that sort of thing, and now they're functioning beautifully.
If it wasn't for Janie, I don't think I could have seen my way through. Because she guided me to help me to guide me through the system.
Notice has been given to all parties. The court has previously determined that the child could not be returned to the custody of either parent and has terminated reunification services. I've read the assessment report. The child advocates have been very well trained on the issue of permanency. I noticed that because in their reports, they will frequently remind everyone that the court system is taking too long, that permanency is necessary, that a concurrent home needs to be identified, that the services have gone on long enough, and that the court should make up its mind about where this child's going to be placed permanently.
You know, I don't think it's a CASA's job to go out and find adoptive families, but I think that they end up with information just by virtue of their relationship with the child that may lead to homes and families that would take them and that would care about them.
I used my influence as an advocate to push for these children to be placed in a permanent home as quickly as possible and to be placed together. I had an opportunity to meet with the foster adopt parents, and I initially made a telephone call and introduced myself and explained my role as an advocate, and so that I would like to come over and see the children in their new home.
She soothed my fears. I was anxiety-ridden over these children that every day became more precious and more important to me. She answered questions about the court, what was next, how long it would take. I think the biggest question we had, and an ongoing question we had, was how long does this take, and when will this be over, and what's next?
Well, Kathy helped on a number of fronts. Certainly she helped, I believe, on the legal front, really representing the interests of the kids. When you have 8 social workers over 2 years, every one of them, you're worried, will be the one that makes some decision that you believe is just not in the children's best interest. You read about it in the paper every day. So there's a lot of nervousness, and having someone that you trust and that has that whole picture. She also got a lot of answers for us that we needed as caregivers, but there wasn't necessarily someone able through the social work system to get through.
And I recall one little girl about 6 years old who came into the courtroom led by her foster parent. And she looked at the courtroom and she stared at what must have been a very imposing scene, with the courtroom and the court bench, with the judge, with the court reporter, with the Office of Family and Children. She looked in this courtroom in this very frightened, confused look, and she saw over in the corner her volunteer guardian ad litem. And her eyes lit up, and she ran over to the guardian ad litem, and she felt comfortable. She knew that there was someone who cared about her, who wasn't looking at this as a case, as another issue we had to get through, who cared about her, and she sat in her lap as we went through the hearing. And that is the kind of representation that we get from guardian ad litem.
I think one of the most memorable moments that Jesse and I have had is when we're driving along in my car, and he turns and looks at me and he says, "Are you always going to be my advocate?" And I looked at him and said, well, you know, so I explained to him what the role of an advocate was, and when he was dismissed from court, I told him that legally I couldn't be his advocate anymore, but we will always be friends, and he reassured me that he wouldn't ever want to lose me as a friend, and I thought that was really sweet of him.
And now he's living with Mom. Things have improved immensely from the boy that I first met, who was running away a lot, who had a lot of anger issues, who just wasn't satisfied with anything in his life. As the goal got closer, and as he saw he could influence it, sometimes with me right by his side, things stabilized, he got his life in control, and things are beautiful now.
National CASA Association, in conjunction with the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, has published a book which is called The Judge's Guide to CASA GAL Program Development. It's a how-to resource tool. It has a chapter written by Judge Len Edwards on the role of the judge as community convener, the person out there in the community who makes the community aware of the need for a CASA program to serve the needs of the children who come before the court that are otherwise not being served. There is also a chapter on ethics. 3 judges went together to put together their thoughts for a judge starting a program as to the canons of ethics, which ones apply, and how the judge can play out the leadership role while maintaining the standards of ethics that they are obligated to.
Our judges are working with National CASA in order to promote the CASA message and also to look at ways that judges can partner more closely with the CASA program nationally and locally as well. And as part of that, Judge J. Dean Lewis has developed a judges page which is on the web and really provides some cutting-edge, very critical information that judges need to know on a regular basis.
We're first of all going to talk about the new training which the Child Advocates have instituted. Nan, why don't you give us an update on that?
Okay, yeah, because we're really excited about it.
The first thing the judge needs to do is to convene a meeting. Let the community know that the judge is interested in identifying people who would like to volunteer on behalf of abused and neglected children. I do this frequently, even though I already have a program. I'll speak at a Rotary Club. I'll speak at a church. I'll speak at a women's group. And I'll say, we have a program, or we're thinking about a program that will permit trained volunteers to work one-on-one with abused and neglected children. Are you interested? I've never given a speech where someone has not come up to me afterwards and said, I would like to help. That's how you start a program.
I think that many of the programs would not have started except a judge said, this is something that I want to happen. I think many more programs will start when judges say, this is something that I want to have happen in my community because I think it will make a difference for children.
I honestly don't know how a court could pass up the opportunity to create a CASA program that engages citizen volunteers from the community to work in this area that needs so much help.
And I'll tell you, I know very few judges that wouldn't be happy to take more help when offered. This is a frightening and frustrating area to practice because of the risk associated with a wrong decision.
Every court needs a CASA. Their role is different than that of anyone else in the court system. And I think that it only augments the programs that we have for children there.
What I say is give them a chance, give them the opportunity to show you what they can do. My experience is that they have provided significant assistance to us. They have helped us with getting all the information, the best information about a case, so that we can make the best decision that we can make. If you think that a court decision is just about making the decision, then you're sadly mistaken. It's about solving a problem, and having more information helps to solve that problem. And CASA provides that information to us.